It is a Wednesday, which means it's a Baldy Wednesday. And as always, we are excited to talk to Brian Baldinger, who joins us live on CHGO Bears right now for our weekly Baldy Breakdown. Baldy, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's the holiday season. I mean, who doesn't feel good right now, except if you're a Bear fan? Life is miserable. But other than that, everything is good for me.
So this is the time of year where we usually talk about coaching searches and, who's quitting and who's not quitting, which was the conversation we were just having before you called in. Because I have to say the Bears have been a little hard to figure out. I mean, certainly they've had weeks where it looked like they didn't show up. Arizona early in the year, the Patriots game, scoring 3 points against New England. And then they come with a 3-week stretch where they almost win 3 straight NFC North games in a division that is easily the toughest in football. I didn't think Monday night against the Vikings, I thought they were still playing hard. I don't know how you felt. I thought they were hitting hard. Thomas Brown has insisted the last 2 or 3 days that they played hard in that game. So it's been hard to figure out. I'm just curious what you think right now about the level of intensity that they're still playing with now that their season is obviously completely done and demolished.
I thought it was good. I thought the effort was good. I mean, Sam Darnold had just come off a game where he was practically perfect against the Falcons, throwing 5 touchdowns, and he was far from it the other day. He didn't look anything like he did the week before. That was part of the defense. The game was dreadful to watch, but the Bears were in it. They just, offensively, they're just, they're just not. They just don't. Not only they don't produce, they just don't execute. And so, the quarterback is running around like he's, like just frenetic. Like nobody can play quarterback just running around. I mean, he's an unbelievable athlete. I don't know how he stays on his feet and gets out of some of the jams he gets himself into and out of. But outside of that, that's not really good quarterback play. So, I thought the effort was good. They're just not a very good team right now.
Baldy, 2-part question. What do you like most about what you're seeing from Caleb right now? And where do you see, there's some room for improvement right there?
Well, there was a stretch this year we talked about it. I mean, he was getting the ball out on time. I mean, it might not have been deep passes, but the ball was coming out of his hands from the pocket. And right now, he simply doesn't trust the protection. I don't blame him. He's reading the rush. That's what I don't like. As soon as the quarterback starts to read the rush, I don't care if it's a second into it or 2 seconds into it. As soon as he starts reading the rush and trying to escape, then basically the play is that every once in a while you'll make some sort of a ridiculous play. But for the most part, as soon as defensive coordinators, Aaron Glenn this week, sees a quarterback reading the rush, they're just going to come after you. And they're just going to try to get as many hands in the face and as many bodies to you as they possibly can because they know the odds are going to drop. You're not going to complete passes when you do it. And then what I like about him is just like he's highly, highly competitive. But I think the frenetic style that he's playing in, especially last week, and look, Minnesota can make you do that. They blitzed him repeatedly. But you like to see some kind of an answer to these blitzes, like just get the ball out to a check down or something. So he doesn't have to do all this all the time.
So, yeah, I'm curious if you'd want to go a little more into detail about reading the rush. I find that interesting. I essentially know what you mean by that, but maybe for fans that would like a little more detail into that thought, like what you want to read the rush as a quarterback, right? But like you're saying,
you want to trust your protection. You don't want to read the rush. I mean, it's good to see if a corner cat is coming at you. That's good. I was talking to Tom Brady about this a couple of weeks ago, and he was just telling me that a lot of a quarterback's ability in the pocket to feel the rush but not see it is an instinct, and it can't be taught. And I think Caleb has some of that to a great degree, but look, the rookie tackle is out there. He wasn't very good. He's going up against an elite player. They're not helping him out in some cases. It makes no sense to me. Like, why? The kid is a kid. Like, it's his first NFL action. Like, help the guy out. But, that's a blindsided Caleb. He feels Gennard coming. You get rocked early in a game like that. You're gonna start looking around to see who else is coming. Is it Cashman? Is it Metellus? Like, who's coming? Because they were running all kinds of blitzes at him. And so as soon as the eyes drop, you're not going to see Keenan. You're not going to see Rome. You're not going to see – because I thought there were some plays he could have gotten the ball out on time, and he wasn't. And it's not difficult. It's basic routes against coverages. And you got to throw it with anticipation, trusting your receiver is going to be there, and that will beat any rush that comes after you. And I thought he could have made some of those throws.
Yeah, I agree. What would you say is your overall we're almost, a full season into Caleb Williams' NFL career. It's a quarter of his rookie contract. What is your level of concern at this point?
I have high concern because I see way more development from Bo and from Jaden, but there's in those places they've got tremendous stability. None of these guys have had their head coach fired, their offense coordinator fired. They haven't. The quarterback coach is now the coordinator. Now he's the head coach. Like that, none of that is. And he's got to answer questions, all that. And he's just trying to learn the league. And it's like a hitter going through the pitching lineup. You got to see these pitchers before you become a good hitter. You're just not Sammy Sosa year one. So I feel like he's answering these questions. He's trying to figure out, okay, Eberflus is gone. There's a lot that's happened to him. Offensive line, they've had a lot of issues there. So I feel like some of it is unfair. I'm not going to sit here and just make excuses for him, but none of these other guys that we're seeing developing has had any of this happen to them.
Baldy, who on this Bears defense would you be saying, you know what, you got to keep that guy next year? I guess more specifically, I'm talking about the front seven, and I'm not taking TJ Edwards out of it. We were just having a conversation.
TJ was going to be the first name that came out of my mouth.
Wait a minute. You can't ask him that question and then take the most obvious guy out.
No, but we were just having a conversation about Tremaine. We're having a conversation about, should Sanborn be around here? And then I'm looking up front, and I'm not saying that you don't want, obviously Montez is going to be here, but do you see anybody else I really think that Gervon Dexter is going to be huge in year 3. I know he was out in the last week, but does anybody jump out at you that you really like?
Well, Gervon at times, for sure. I don't know if he's not a frontline starter on a top 5 defense, but he's a good player. Losing Billings hurt. The corners, I would say that, your slot defender, Gordon, is a guy, I know he's missed time with an injury, but he's a really good player. And you need that player on your defense. And so I think he plays the game the right way. I would say that he's a guy that shouldn't go anywhere. Jalen isn't quite having the year he's had, but he's a good player. So I would say those guys for sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just keeping with the defensive theme. In your opinion, are the Bears unable, because of the personnel they have, to consider switching to a 3-4 next year?
Well, if you're going to play the 3-4, who's your outside linebackers? You always get caught. I'm watching this kid at Marshall, Mike Green. Looks like a first-round pick to me. He's got 17 sacks at Marshall. Great game against Ohio State. You got to get outside linebackers. And so, who's playing that position in this defense? You have to go find those guys. Generally, you have to restructure your whole not your personnel department, but usually that transition doesn't happen overnight. Now, the Vikings went out and they rebuilt an entire defense with a completely different defensive front, and they struck gold on every player, whether it's Dallas Turner or Pat Jones or, going to get themselves Gennard or, going to get themselves Van Geeken. Every single guy they brought in, they hit gold. Now, a lot of it is Flores has a very specific game plan and a very specific style of defense, but they rebuilt their entire front seven, and they've been phenomenal. So it can be done. It can be done. You got to strike. You got to have a clear vision about what's. And it was interesting, just because you played Minnesota. But I was talking to Stephon Gilmore about Flores. He had Flores in New England, and he said the defense is completely different than what he had in New England. And he was a defensive player of the year in 2019. But he said you can't give any of these offenses and these great quarterbacks the same defense each play or each game. You've got to change it up, even during the course of week to week. And that's kind of what Flores is doing right now. and one of the reasons why they're so good at taking the ball away, whatever, is like they give you a lot to look at before the snap every play. And I kind of feel like Gilmore's right about that.
So that's very interesting you just said that, Baldy, because I got to be honest, Brian Flores is near the top, if not at the top, of my list of candidates the Bears should consider for a number of different reasons, including, part of the Ben Johnson conversation is, you get to weaken your divisional rival at the same time by taking him away. Well, the same thing applies to Brian Flores. I mean, this defense is causing a lot of problems. Why don't you bring it over here? Now, what you just said about Gilmore really is intriguing me because I was actually just looking at Flores this morning and doing some research on him and trying to figure out, he spent so much time with Belichick and the Patriots. One of the things I'm trying to look at with all these candidates is how diverse are they in the schemes and influences, coaching influences that they've been around. And when he got the job in Miami, he was basically just like, I've been with Belichick.
Yeah.
Then he has the job in Miami. But after that, he spends 1 year, which I think is an incredibly important year. He goes to the Steelers and spends a year with Mike Tomlin. And now we're hearing from another – because to me it looks different. Now that he's with the Vikings, it's not the same defense. And I'm wondering where that came from.
Well, it's interesting because when he went to Miami, he brought that style. I remember, I'll never forget, Miami played – Lamar Jackson was just the MVP of the league. They played Lamar and the Ravens on a Thursday night, and Lamar was like 1 for 14 on third down, and he could not figure it out. They had 8 guys up the line of scrimmage. It looked like a blitz zero. They would drop out, and play coverage. They would get a free hitter at Lamar. They couldn't function. And he started building that package in Miami. And he had Jalen Phillips. He had some good players. He had Javon Holland was a rookie. He had some good players there. But I feel like he's taken this to a whole new level. In fact, if you ask Andrew Van Ginken, what position are you? He goes, I'm just a playmaker. I don't have it. It's almost like Golden State and what they did with positionless basketball. I feel like that's what Flores is doing. Go look and find out how many different places Josh Muttelis plays, how many different places on the field he's at. He's all over the place. And, they're a real good cover 2 team. They got Cade Bynum, they got Harrison Smith, 2 great safeties. They keep everything in front of them. But their front, you really don't, you're really left guessing. And I think more teams, because, we copycat this whole league. There was the Tampa 2, there was all these different defenses. But I feel like this is the defense that more and more teams are going to, where they're really trying to confuse your protections, which is key, and then trying to keep you guessing up until the snap.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned Metellus and earlier you mentioned Kyler Gordon, because one of the things I feel like we were actually talking about Kyler during the game on Monday night too. Kyler's got so much talent, and he has these splashes, but you kind of are always want more out of it. I almost feel like this scheme has been bad for him because this is the opposite of Flores. It's we're going to sit in this cover 2, Tampa 2 situation. We're not going to get too exotic about it. And to me, seeing what Flores has done with Metellus, I'm imagine what he could do with Kyler Gordon. Gordon would play every spot on the field.
Yep. I can see that. But, look at, they lead the league in interceptions. Did all of a sudden all these guys just become, Harrison Smith has had, he's got 35 or 36 interceptions. He's been doing it. But, all these, nobody knew a lot of these guys. He's been taking guys off the street, and they're getting picks. Linebackers are getting interceptions. You're giving extra at-bats to that offense, with, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and the quarterback and that head coach coordinator. They're going to put up a lot of points like they have. But what I kind of want to know is Flores made some mistakes in Miami as a head coach, no question. But a lot of these guys make mistakes the first time around. Would he be better the second time around? As far as, loving these guys up a little bit more than maybe he did in Miami and not being just such a Belichick type disciple. Would he sort of find a guy that really knew how to develop a quarterback, in Caleb? Would he bring that, you'd love to say, okay, let's get Brian Flores as a head coach and bring the defense. Let's go get Ben Johnson and bring him in here to help out Caleb in the offense. That might be the perfect storm.
Baldy, I got to rewind, and it's super interesting everything you're just saying there, especially the positionless defense. Like maybe we're going cutting edge here. But, you just dropped about 10 minutes ago. I was talking to Tom Brady. Like, what's it like saddling up with the GOAT and just having a conversation, looking into his eyes and doing that?
Well, first of all, if you go up and like you can go up and shoot the breeze with Tom. He comes down the field. He's the Pied Piper. They're all following him around. They all want to see him, but coaches, players, everything, right? But if you ask him, like I was asking him about Brock Purdy, and at that time Brock was playing really good, and he wasn't overly impressed by him. And then he explained why he wasn't. And then I was asking about the pocket presence thing, like how did he develop? He told me the story that he had this one defensive outside linebacker that came and beat his tackle, and he got beat badly, and for some reason he just ducked. And he said he never ducked before. And all of a sudden the defensive, the outside linebacker jumped over the top of him, and he got out and he threw a touchdown pass. And he's like, he had no idea why he did that. But he said it was just something that was instinctive inside of him. And then I was asking him about red zone offense one day, because I've seen him a couple times in games. And like, if you ask me something about red zone offense, you better be highly specific, because he knows every single stat of every single team. Okay, is it 3rd and 3 to 7, Baldy? Are they inside the 10 or are they at the 19? Like, you gotta when you ask him a question, you can't just throw something at him and see if it sticks. Like, he's gonna shoot you down right away. So like, I've kind of learned like not to just be general, but I said, in general, Tom, red zone offense gives a lot of teams a problem. Is it good just to have Gronkowski or Randy Moss just to throw it up there to the rim and let him go get? He goes, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much like the difference when you have those guys.
Yeah, I obviously
being you.
I'd love to obviously talk to you more about Ben Johnson. Obviously, the Bears playing the Lions on Sunday, but at the same time, you talking about Tom Brady. There has been a theory that potentially the Bears might hire a guy like Mike Vrabel, and their offensive coordinator could be Josh McDaniels, who worked with Tom Brady. So I just figured this was a good segue to get your opinion on that. A guy that had a lot of success as a coordinator, didn't have a lot of success as a head coach. So in that theory, maybe not somebody that's looking to become a head coach again, and somebody that we could find with stability. And then what are your thoughts on his ability to develop and execute a good offense?
Well, do you know that Josh isn't going with Belichick to North Carolina?
Do you know? Baldy?
Now, I got to send Lombardi a text here today, since he's the new GM, and see what that staff. I have a feeling it's going to be a couple Lombardis and a couple Belichicks on that staff pretty soon. But my guess is they would at least make the phone call to Josh to see if he wants to come and start headhunting some of these quarterbacks to come and play in North Carolina. But I don't know. I mean, Josh was terrible as a head coach in 2 places. He was terrible, at the Raiders and at Denver. He wouldn't be my first choice right now.
All right, well then I guess just to bring it back to Ben Johnson, since the Bears play against the Lions, and this is somebody that, obviously
doing that because I talked up Brian Flores.
Well, let's talk about it all. Let's go over all 18 coaches we're thinking about, Baldy. But we might as well ask you about Ben Johnson, since we are playing the Lions. I know you mentioned a few weeks ago that his play calling and all the different looks he gives defenses is second to none. But I guess I'm more curious to know what you know about him as somebody that, how is he in the room in front of the guys? I've heard this theory that he's a back of the room guy, not a front of the room guy. So I'm just curious what you know about his presence on the field.
I don't know enough to really answer the question quantitatively. I kind of, when you get a hot candidate like Ben Johnson has been for 2 straight years, you say, okay, give him Carolina's personnel and what's Ben Johnson. Like, take Penei Sewell away, take Frank Ragnow away, and take Jahmyr Gibbs away. And how good is his offense? Like, I see the concepts, and they're creative. Amon-Ra Brown is a guy that is literally, he's motivated every day just because of where he was taken in the draft and what they said about him. And the money that they paid him is never going to change his work ethic. Like, he's going to look at that draft status and the report every day. So if you take highly motivated players like Amon-Ra or a player of Penei Sewell's ability or Ragnow's ability, you take those guys away from Ben Johnson. And it's a question you have to ask. Like, how innovative and creative is he going to be? Because the Bears don't have guys like that. Maybe Rome Odunze becomes that player. But I don't know. They don't have a player like Jahmyr Gibbs that can score from anywhere on the field. But that doesn't really answer the question. I don't know what he's going to be like. We never know until, like, adversity hits. Like Jimmy Johnson, when he went to Dallas, he was 1-15 his rookie year. His first year, 1989. And the team was terrible because I left the team that year before. I knew how bad the Cowboys were. And within 3 years, they won a Super Bowl. So, but nobody ever doubted Jimmy Johnson, ever. And he never coached in pros or, had no pro experience. So I just don't know enough. And that's the $1 million question for any Bear fan or anybody that's going to hire. Like, would Ben Johnson be doing what Cliff Kingsbury is doing with Jaden Daniels right now? I don't know. I think Cliff's done a really good job with him. But I don't know the answer to it, really. And it's something I guess I got to really try to figure out. I know his agent, but I haven't really talked to him much about him in that capacity as a head coach.
Baldy, I don't want to go too far behind the scenes, but where are you? You're not in your Baldy office right now. I feel like you're like on the beach in Cabo or something.
Well, I'm not in Cabo, but I just did get out of the ocean. I was riding waves today in Fort Lauderdale. It was pretty choppy. Yeah. So yeah, like it was just a day where you just got to take a break and go ride waves for an hour.
That's what I'm talking about. The life of Baldy's so good
right now. Yeah, Baldy, we always love talking to you. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep, you bet, guys. Maybe you can break this losing streak here. Beat a good team.
I doubt it.
That would be something.
I doubt it.
The Eagle fans will send you Christmas gifts like you can't believe if you can take care of business.
That's a good point.
We could help out PHLY.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. All right.
We can help out Gargano over there. And yeah.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.